Welcome to Biztech C-Suite Conversations Show. Today we speak with Raghav Gupta, Managing Director, Asia Pacific and India at Coursera. Now, Coursera was founded in 2012 and is headquartered in California and is one of the largest online learning platforms in the world, with 92 million registered learners by partnering with about 150 of the world's best university and educational institutions. Now, to tell us more, Raghav, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Now, could you give us an overview of Coursera and its very interesting history?
Yeah, sure. So let me give a quick overview first and then a little bit about history. I'm conscious you're aware of our history as well. Coursera is, of course, an online education platform. We serve two kinds of learners. We serve either students who are in higher education and we serve working professionals. And what we do is we partner with the world's leading universities, partner with the world's leading companies. They create content. This content could be as short as a 1-hour project, or it could be as long as a 4-year degree. And then we take these to these learners who are either, like I said, students or working professionals. And we do this through two platforms. We do this through a B2C platform and a B2B platform. So that's essentially what Coursera does. We have a large, marketplace for education, higher education, specifically for students in higher education as well as working professionals.
Okay, you started off being a free platform, but you have both a free and commercial offerings. Help us understand the Coursera business model.
Sure. So from a purely business model standpoint, we have 3 revenue lines. One is our consumer platform. When you go to Coursera.org, that's what one is coming to. And on our consumer platform, many learners who come to us are coming to online learning possibly for the first time. They want to explore it. They want to get to know it before they actually make a decision to engage and invest in online learning. And there an individual can come and experience a free course and then, pay for a free course. And I think that's what you're referring to as a part of, some free learning and then progressing to paid learning. So that's one business line. The second business line is our enterprise business, or B2B. And here we work with businesses, we work with governments, and we work with campuses who at an institutional level want to bring learning to their employees, their citizens, or their students. And then finally, we have a degrees revenue line. And Brian, what's been happening over the last, I would say 3-4 years, of course, accelerated by the pandemic, is in higher education, especially in master's education, a lot of education is fully moving online as well. And in the degree space, we have fully online degrees on our platform that an individual can come and get a degree from amongst the top universities on Coursera. So those are the 3 pieces of our revenue model, if you will.
So how do you then monetize the third-party solutions? That do you get a cut out of the course fees that are paid?
Yeah, so, just to put some numbers around this, we partner with about 175 of the world's top universities and close to about 75 companies, and whether this is a Stanford, Yale University, some of the IIMs in India and so on and so forth. And then companies like Google, IBM, Facebook, and so on. And when we bring content from these leading institutions on our platform, whether it's the B2B platform, the B2C platform, or the degrees platform, we would do a revenue share with that institution. So that the effort that that institution has put in terms of creating content pays back to them as well. And we are able to provide reach to these institutions to reach millions of learners and thousands of institutions around the world. So we do a revenue share with the institutions who author content on our platform.
Okay, so you're an edtech pioneer. In fact, basically that word edtech didn't even exist when Coursera was started. And you IPO'd last year. How did the pandemic serve to accelerate your business growth?
Yeah, and just very quickly to add to the history as well, and you referred to it earlier, Coursera was started by 2 Stanford University professors back in 2012. And so Andrew Ng and Daphne Koller are the founders of Coursera. And I don't know the actual, specifics around this, but I do know the term MOOCs, massive open online courses, also probably came up around the same time. And this is the year when we will celebrate 10 years of our being. In March last year, 2021, we went and IPO'd on the stock exchange. And, we've seen through the course of the pandemic, it's coming up close to 2 years. Of course, we've seen massive acceleration in the adoption of online education. I think we were on our B2C platform about 45 million learners before the pandemic hit in March 2020. And today we are upwards of 90 million learners on our platform. So we've definitely seen acceleration of online education. But I'd love to talk to you a little bit about what are some of the underlying insights which are driving this acceleration, both at the work level, but also, how governments, support citizens, and also how campuses provide learning to students as well.
Sure, fantastic. In fact, one of the key things we can start with is really, because there's a mismatch of skills that employers want in many markets and what the graduates that are coming in actually have. What's Coursera's take on how you help to address this gap?
So I think one of the underlying reasons for the skills mismatch, Brian, has been that, and we've all experienced this as users ourselves, is that 90% plus businesses around the world have been forced to go digital. Businesses talk about digital transformation, and that's clearly accelerated through the course of the pandemic. Now, what this means is that many businesses are investing billions of dollars of technology, to be able to go digital. And when you invest in going digital, you also create a lot of data, right? And the second thing which has happened is many of us have been forced to work from home, and companies have been managing virtual teams. So what's happened is that work requires all of us, especially those working in the technology space, those working in the banking space, telecom space, to now have skills around technology, to have skills around data, and to also have new human skills, if you will, right? How do you work in a virtual team? How do you convey your messages effectively in a virtual team, and so on? So digital data and new human skills is what the workplace needs. And this is where this gap has kind of kicked in. And, higher education traditionally has been an industry which has taken time to change. So definitely, our universities around the world were not prepared. Nobody was prepared for the kind of changes that we've seen kick in. And we've seen two things happening. We've seen that companies have invested in reskilling and upskilling of their employees to be able to build skills in digital skills, data skills, and these new human skills that I spoke about. At the same time, campuses have also said that, look, there's a lot of new technology coming. As an example, you might be studying to be an MBA and you might want to go and work in a bank. And today, fintech is disrupting the banking industry, and chances are that you need to learn blockchain. Chances are that you need to learn something about cryptocurrency, about fintech. And if an MBA school is not teaching these subjects, they've had to adapt. And that's where Coursera has come in and said, look, we have content on blockchain, we have content on crypto that can complement what you're teaching as an MBA school to your student.
Okay, so that's interesting. Raghav, I want to stop you there because I want to isolate that role that you're playing that's going beyond just being an aggregator of courses. You're helping to curate courses with universities as well.
Absolutely. We have the benefit of data on our platform, Brian, and we're monitoring this very, very closely. We put out something called the Global Skills Report. We've been doing that for the last 2-3 years. And so when I say that we are seeing the need for digital data and new human skills coming, what we are doing is we're going to universities and saying, look, this is what the working world needs. And we are going to ask you to create content in this space. And also what we do is when we go to a company to work with them and help them get ready for the future, we will take the 8,000 courses and projects on our platform and curate that, like you said, for their needs. Because as you can imagine, the needs of a bank are different from the needs of a telecom company, are different from the needs of a manufacturing company, and are different from the needs of a professional services company. So yes, we are bringing insight into what is the data telling us on what the world needs to learn. And we're also then curating content to be able to cater to what some of that insight is teaching us.
Could you give us some successful case studies of how you've worked with educational institutions in crafting specific courses.
Sure. So let me take two examples, which are from, the region. So in Malaysia, on the business side, we work with Axiata, which is, as you know, a telecom company. And like I was saying, in the telecom space, even pre-pandemic, more digital, and as a result of more digital, more data, was coming up for a long time. And Axiata and Coursera partnered very specifically on the data science space. Coursera has high quality content from institutions like Johns Hopkins University, and also content from companies like Google and IBM. And we took a lot of that data science content to Axiata to help them train hundreds of data scientists, so that the data that they can that the company is creating could be captured better, could be analyzed better, and then could be plowed back into the business to generate consumer insights and to be able to cater to their consumer needs better. So we've seen that happen very effectively on the consumer side. And then on the campus side, working with an institution, we work with BAC in Malaysia. And BAC is a leading law institution. They also have MBA programs and other programs as well. And what they wanted to do is bring cutting edge content to their students along with what they're teaching on campus. The example that I was taking earlier, that if you're an MBA student, you might need to learn technologies like Python, at least have the introductory level of knowledge to a technology like Python, or you might not need to learn blockchain. And so what we're doing with BSc in Malaysia is bringing some of this content to their students, so that these students can then be ready for the future of work when they go out and start working in jobs in the country.
So essentially, and this is fascinating for me, you've really become an accelerator and an enabler, because let me take the two examples that you've just used. You've allowed Axiata, by working with them, to upskill their existing workforce to tackle the changing needs of their business without them having to then hire new people in order to fill these skills gaps. On the BAC side, basically, you are allowing an educational institution that may not have, or would take too long for them to develop their own content, to accelerate and be more relevant by using your content in order to make their courses more up to date.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct in terms of how you summarized it.
So really, the Coursera is really a partner on the B2B, on the commercial side, whether it's on the educational side and on the corporate side, is really a very close partner with these sort of institutions. Most people think of Coursera, of course, on the B2C side of the business. But looking at a more macro perspective, you've been working with countries as well to drive nationwide impact in terms of education. Could you kind of share with us some of the success stories that you've had in that area?
Yeah, so one of the institutions that we work with on our enterprise platform is governments and government organizations, Brian. We've seen that around the world, and we work with upwards of 40, 50 government bodies. Around the world, the pandemic has, of course, caused a lot of job losses, and governments are really concerned about high unemployment rates in their countries. And we've also seen that the need for skilling has been around a lot of digital jobs. There's a Microsoft research which talks about 150 million new digital jobs that are getting created around the world. Many of those are in Southeast Asia as well. While on the other side, we've seen job losses in industries like travel and hospitality and retail and so on. So what governments have done is they've said, look, we want to retrain citizens who have lost jobs into areas where they can get digital jobs. If you were in the retail trade and if you lost your job, chances are that there might be something available in e-commerce for you, right? Or if you're somebody in the hospitality space, maybe there is something in the professional services space that you can come in and do. So we've seen governments wanting to do this migration. And with governments in countries like India, in countries like the Philippines, in Costa Rica, and so on and so forth, we've partnered with governments on large-scale programs where I would say the focus has been skilling citizens who've lost jobs for skills of the future and jobs of the future. And many of these jobs are in the digital space. You might want to become a data analyst because, like I've been saying, that's where a lot of business is heading. Or you might want to come and work in digital marketing, or you might want to acquire another technology skill related to machine learning or artificial intelligence or area like that.
Okay, so just a quick question. What are the top trending online courses for Coursera in the region on the B2C level?
So we see a very healthy mix actually, and I'll take an example specifically of what we are seeing in Malaysia. Looking back at 2021, we see a mix of technology skills being learned on Coursera. And by the way, there are just a little under 500,000 learners on the Coursera platform in Malaysia. So it's a large number that I'm kind of referring to from a database standpoint. These are folks who are coming and learning machine learning from Stanford University on Coursera. They're also learning programming for everybody in Python from the University of Michigan, as a part of the broader data science domain. There's a lot of language learning actually that happens on Coursera as well. So in fact, the #1 course on Coursera in Malaysia is called First Step Korean from Yonsei University. And there's also, Chinese for beginners from Peking University. There's also English for career development from the University of Pennsylvania. So there's quite a bit of language learning that happens on Coursera as well. Data is important. So there's a course called Foundations in Data Everywhere from Google, which is quite popular. And then also personal well-being, Brian. I think it's very important to highlight this. Introduction to Psychology from Yale University is amongst the most popular courses. And then also the Science of Well-being. We saw this course really, see a lot of learners come and take this course. It's from Yale University. And then the last one, which I'll mention, and I'll pause with that, is just fundamentally a course called Learning How to Learn. How do human beings learn? This is a course that comes from two neuroscientists, and Dr. Barbara Oakley teaches this course. And that's very popular in Malaysia as well. So a mix of, I would say, technology, data, language, and personal well-being are the kind of courses that we see in Malaysia.
Interesting. Now, how about regionally? What are some key trends and best practices in e-learning that we should be looking out for in 2022?
I think what we will see, and these are based on some of the trends that we are seeing. Firstly, we have seen that companies are very clearly investing quite significantly behind getting their workforces ready for the future. I've been in conversations with not just CHROs, but also CEOs who are actively thinking about getting their organizations ready for the future. We did a study recently and we found that there is obviously direct correlation between the stock price performance of a company and the skill proficiency of the workers in the company. So there is business impact coming from skilling. And we are seeing that skilling at the workplace will continue to accelerate. We also think that on the campus side, around the world, as we settle in from the pandemic, we've seen a combination of almost all learning having to have moved online, but we will see a lot of learning moving back to campuses when campuses open, but maybe 20-30% of learning will stay online, especially emerging technologies. And then we are also seeing a lot of individuals investing in their own learning. I was mentioning to you that we saw on our consumer platform, learners go from about 40 million, 45 million to upwards of 90 million through the pandemic. And so individuals are investing in their learning quite significantly as well. And we're expecting that as we start to hopefully emerge from the pandemic, that trend will continue going forward as well. It's going to be in those areas of, I would say, digital, data, and the new human skills that I referred to earlier as well. Those are the three broad areas of learning as well that we expect will happen.
And so now coming back to Coursera and your plans for the region this year, where is the growth going to come from? What are your objectives for the year?
I think on the back of fairly strong tailwinds from the pandemic, we have seen growth across all of our platforms over the last 2 years. And we are a public company and a lot of this information is available now. But we've seen our consumer platform, our enterprise platform, and our degrees platform continue. From a Asia Pacific standpoint, we have teams in Southeast Asia, we have colleagues in Singapore, colleagues in Malaysia. We want to be able to continue to serve learners in the region. And actually, the content catalog is growing quite rapidly as well. We want to be able to bring skills which are relevant from a future of work standpoint to learners in the region as well. And in our partnerships with universities, we expect that that will continue to happen. So, Brian, essentially what I'm saying is, I think the tailwinds that have, accelerated Coursera's usage, we expect a lot of that to continue over the course of 2022, even though the pandemic hopefully is now, in its last legs. But this acceleration in the need for high quality online education, we think will continue quite rapidly.
Raghav, it's been a fantastic and a fascinating conversation. But before we leave, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
One of the things that I found very useful over the last 2 years is to continue to build in my own learning. And, as working professionals, who are busy with work, otherwise one tends to forget that learning and continuous skilling is important. And I've realized, and I say this often, it's a little bit like building a muscle, right? You want to build a bicep, you go to the gym for maybe 4-6 months and then you succeed. So I think for all of us as senior leading professionals, to build the muscle of lifelong learning is quite important. And I would just say that as a parting thought, that it's probably something worthwhile keeping in mind as well.
Absolutely. And Raghav, you're preaching to the converted on that. Lifelong learning. Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Raghav Gupta, the Managing Director, Asia Pacific and India at Coursera, on Biztech C-Suite Conversations Show. This video and podcast will be on our various platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.